I call it the 90-10 rule. My goal is that my company, for myself, my clients, whatever, that their time is best spent doing that 10% of life that actually matters, and the other 90% that they're doing that doesn't matter is either, I follow the A.D.D principle. You're either automating it, you're delegating it, or you're just flat out deleting it. So I come in and I figure out ways to automate and delegate, and I let the client decide if they're going to delete something.
You're listening to the Establishing Your Empire Show, a podcast that inspires entrepreneurs, creatives, and future business owners to pursue their passions, grow their organizations, and build their empire. My name is Daran Herrman, and creatively, I'm best known for my photography. But business-wise, my claim to fame is growing a company from $15K per month in online sales to breaking the $1 million a month barrier. And I'm sitting down with interesting people to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how they have established their empires. All right, I got Jeff J. Hunter, the Savage Marketer, here on the podcast here with me. Thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate you jumping on the podcast. Why don't we start with why don't you give us a background of who you are and what you do?
It all probably starts back to where I was before my savage marketing life, which was, I've always kind of been in the corporate world, worked up the corporate ladder, I guess you could say. I worked at a computer store, then worked as an IT administrator for a school district, and then I got recruited to be an IT project manager for a Fortune 500 company. I did that for 4 years up in Portland, Oregon. That was really fun. But then I kind of figured out this whole virtual team building thing, which was really exciting and fun. And it's what I did at Philips, which was the company that I worked at. But there were just so many different possibilities that I discovered about just building virtual teams. And now that's kind of my passion. My passion is building virtual teams. And then, of course, once I got good at building virtual teams, I said, holy crap, what can I do with all these virtual teams?
Yeah, can I have that? Okay, can I build an engine to do what I want to do, right?
Yeah. So then I used the team to do marketing, because I found out that that was super easy thing to do, is to actually leverage your team to do what most people can't, which is, be present all the time.
Which I'm going to be really excited about this conversation. So Gobato, the marketing firm that I own, is 100% freelancers. And I hire everybody from local people here to people in Indonesia, India, Pakistan, all over the place. And I love the time difference that it gives me. Get somebody waking up when you're going to sleep, right? You get a 24-hour cycle, or probably even more than that. So why don't we start with, because some people might not know what a virtual team, like a whole lot about that. So maybe give us a little background of maybe your definition of it, or how you see it, or why it's important to you, anywhere you want to go with it.
Yeah. I mean, a virtual team is literally that, a team that works for you virtually, remotely. And it's become a very interesting catchphrase lately since the whole COVID-19 crisis, because businesses that pretty much didn't have any digital presence and were functioning 100% in person obviously just got delivered a huge blow. I mean, unless you were a Costco and you had a flood of people like zombies coming in to buy toilet paper, your business probably suffered. It's so interestingly enough, I mean, when all this stuff happened, I actually had a huge influx in business, because people came to me and said, hey, Jeff, I know that you are obviously great at building virtual teams. How the heck do I do that for my business? And even digitalmarketer.com had approached me and said, hey, you know what? A lot of our business owners that do marketing would love to learn this. So it's kind of given me a little bit of an opportunity to develop myself as like a thought leader, I guess you could say. So.
And how would somebody, okay, let's just say you're a small company or whatever, how would you get started hiring your first team or person, or wherever? How would you get them going?
There's a lot of different places to hire virtual teams nowadays. Like there's Upwork, and there Fiverr, and a lot of freelance websites like FreeUp and some other things like that. For me personally though, I haven't had a whole lot of luck with the freelancers. Um, and I think it stems with something that I've actually called and labeled freelanceritis. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about when I say this.
I have an idea where you're going.
But it usually stems from, people once they, a lot of people, they get sold this dream because now there's this dream on Instagram. There's a million Instagram influencers, right? And those Instagram influencers, what do? They start their Instagram accounts and they basically get famous by traveling the world and telling people how they work for themselves and they're a freelancer, copywriter or graphic designer or whatever the heck they are, or even virtual assistant. And uh, I mean, so being a freelancer kind of has its own stigma of
Mhm.
being free. It's
Yeah,
a
and work. Yeah,
freelancer,
right. And you can work from the
right?
beach, right? No
And
problem.
the problem that generates, my man, is that a lot of times that also is an absence of accountability.
Completely.
So
Or knowing how to work without a structure. So a
that's a
lot of
very
people come from a corporate world and they're like, you know what, I'm pretty good at this, or I've done this before. I can do it on my own. Well, it gets really hard when you don't have somebody breathing down your neck right next to you. Some people are really good at it. Some people are not.
you're absolutely right. And that right there is that's where the cookie crumbles, because at the end of the day, you and we both have agencies, and probably the people listening here have agencies, and they want to serve their clients in the best of their abilities, right? Reliably and consistently and with good quality. And when you have to rely on a freelancer who maybe is just going project to project and isn't dedicated to you, um, that turns into a challenge.
So how do you find the good people then?
I recruit them.
I figured
So
there had to be something. That was kind of a layup. It was a softball
yeah,
toss there for you.
that's it. I literally recruit them, and that's one of the things that's really important that I truly believe in too, is that you have to find people that already kind of do the job or something similar in a vertical of what you want them to do,
Hmm.
and that really helps out in, well, a number of ways. But like, for example, if I'm going to hire someone to be a virtual assistant for me, for example, then if somebody's in the call center industry, see, it's already in customer sales and support, it's easier for me to train someone customer service from a BPO industry than to train a random, person off the street how to do customer support and be a VA. So I'm actually and by the way, the one thing that I'm looking for that you can't train is someone who's reliable, consistent, and has good work ethic. And the only people that have those, my friend, are people that already have jobs.
Right, the trifecta.
People that, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but this is a key factor that I want everyone to think about. Most of the time when people are looking for a job, there's a reason why they don't have a job.
I assume that to be true, and a lot of freelancers, to be fair, are a freelancer because they're in between jobs and they need to make money, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
and there's could be a reason why.
Well, there's a lot nowadays of COVID. A lot of people just woke
Right.
up one day and found out that their job wasn't quote unquote essential. Right.
So when did you start like this whole? So like it sounds like a whole kind of different arm of what you do, or how you do it. Like because from what I've learned about you online is a lot more of the marketing side, the social media side. So with virtual teams, is this because of COVID being kind of front and center, or is this something that you've been doing for a long period of time? Or
I've been, in the corporate world. I mean, I built virtual teams, and as a project manager, I was basically leading virtual teams working from my home. And by the way, that's another discussion for another day. But I think finally the home-based worker, the remote worker, finally has a place at the table at corporations because
I agree. And the thing is like, why do you really think the best person is always going to be in your city? Especially for some hard tasks or projects. Like, I love being able to hire somebody for someplace else because they might have a different perspective that I might need, right? And I think that that it's now false. It's proven false that people can't work from home. Like there's
Bingo.
been too many companies that like said that employees couldn't do it, and obviously they can.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I realized. I mean, when I was working from home as a project manager, I used to get looked at and treated differently than other people at the company because I work from home, you know? And I think there's finally some validity to that. I think that finally people are starting to see that virtual is the way of the future. It's not even the future, it's the present. You know, there's people that have already been doing this and for a long time. I remember like 4 years ago when a very popular social media platform, they moved their entire San Francisco office to remote based. And they wrote a blog about it. The CEO got famous because it was such a crazy, outlandish idea 4 years ago. And then coronavirus came and made it, well, a necessity and no longer something that's cute and fun.
So what do you see kind of coming out of coronavirus, or however you want to put it, like next 6 months, year? Like what's the future of whether you want to take it with virtual teams or marketing or how people deal with it, however you want to take that. What do you see what's coming up next?
I think that there is going to be one of those fork in the road moments where people say, you know, let me give you a good example, and hopefully my client won't get too upset with me revealing this. But one of my clients, Kathy, she owns a call center in Chicago, and I actually just recently she actually acquired another call center uh, that's double her size. Well, it's technically the same size, but it has two different offices. So she's negotiating or working on something just this year where she's growing her team just huge, and she doesn't have a choice. I mean, that's kind of where she's at now. That's what she's working on, you know. And what's really crazy about it is that a call center is literally a call center, has a business front, right? And she found out the hard way that maybe it would be important for her to be able to offer call center services um, from home, right? But she didn't have the equipment set up. So I think it's there's going to be a gut check, and I think that there's three main industries that is going to really affect the most. One of them is education. My son, I don't know about you, but my son, who is 7 years old, has been doing Zoom classes with his other classmates, and it's been really interesting to see because he's doing those like 2 3 hours a day, and they're learning, and I'm seeing the homework and stuff, and it's kind of made my wife and I reimagine, like, should we be homeschooling? You know, I mean, we are now, you know.
Right. Well, you have to right now, at least.
Right.
And I think education is going to get a big overhaul, and I'm
Yeah.
excited about that. Right. Like,
Yeah.
I have a niece that wants to learn Japanese. It's like, well, why don't we have somebody from Japan teach her Japanese? Like,
Yeah.
especially if they don't offer it here locally. I think the shared economies of education is way behind the curve, and I really hope that way behind the curve in institutions. But places like YouTube is way ahead. Like I learned more on YouTube than I probably learned when I went to college,
Oh,
right?
man.
And I think if we can merge the two of some of the old world educations with the new world, I think we could have something really exciting.
Shout out to Khan Academy too, right? Like, I don't know if you know who Khan Academy is, KHAN, but it's an incredible resource. It teaches all sorts of advanced things. They've kind of made a mission of themselves to look at higher education differently, and not just higher education, but just education in general. But that's why I said education. I think education's forever changed. The other thing that I believe is going to be, well, it already has, is on retail in general. Like, if you don't have a pick up from store or fully digital option, like, you've just missed out on a crap ton of business the past couple of months, right?
Or if your website was out of date, we've been really busy because of that. Of people that you've been preaching, hey, we gotta get this up to par, or they've been, they see a lot of other people have nice websites, and if you don't have that now, like you're too late, and
Hmm.
it is what it is. I mean, it's not like this snuck up on us, but the big things is accelerated the speed of people getting online, buy online. I think a lot of that's going to stay around too. People are going to want some of these conveniences. of things being delivered, or like even I just order a sandwich for lunch from a pretty mom and pop place, but they got a great order deal, and I don't have it delivered because they're close, but I have it pick it up so I don't have to talk to anybody, don't have to give anybody money, just do it on my phone, boom, in and out. And not even don't even have to go. I just go in the window. And I think some of those things are gonna stay past COVID, like because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I don't need to make a relationship with those. I just want my sandwich, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the middle of the day. So,
Yeah.
like that call center person, like, is that something where you go in there and you help them figure out how to get virtual? Is that kind of the space that you get in? Like, how do you help somebody like that? That's literally an old world transition to the new world, and how do you help
Yeah.
them?
Well, that's where it gets a little complicated. Um, so personally, I was built in to help build the CEO's personal brand, and then I kind of got snuck in to also do some outsourcing for the agency. So we've been helping them do some. Now they're very proud of being 100% American based call center. So they only have agents that are American. Now, obviously, a lot of my team are in the Philippines, and super proud about that. And so what my team does is help with a lot of the administrative tasks, right? Like QA and reporting and things like that, so that she can keep her team focused on the important piece that they do best, which is American customer service and sales, right?
Right.
So that's what we help her with. We basically offload. I call it the 90-10 rule. My goal is that my company, for myself, my clients, whatever, that their time is best spent doing that 10% of life that actually matters, and the other 90% that they're doing that doesn't matter is either, I follow the A.D.D principle. You're either automating it, you're delegating it, or you're just flat out deleting it. So I come in and I figure out ways to automate and delegate, and I let the client decide if they're going to delete something.
I love the acronym there. That's great. That's great way of remembering that too. So, all right. So you kind of talked a little bit about your background, but why don't we dive into like maybe the history of how you got started, and how did you trans? I think maybe a good spot to start there would be, you had corporate positions, and how did you leave to start your own thing? Because I think a lot of people right now are going to have to do that, forced to do that, or would like to do it. And I think a lot of people would be listening to a podcast trying to figure that out, right? How do I go on my own?
You know what? That's funny that you say that, because that's a perfect transition. We talked about two different things, but we didn't talk about the third thing that I think the industry is going to change a lot. And that's just entrepreneurship in general. I think entrepreneurship right now is going through a very interesting transition. Um, and I think that there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers, just like in everything, right? But uh, I think that corporations are going to be the biggest losers right now, because people are kind of getting smart, to be honest. People are getting smart to the bullcrap. They're getting smart to understanding that maybe the corporations don't have their best interest. Now, I'm not saying that all corporations are bad, right? I'm not like that. I'm just saying that my personal experience is that when I worked at a company, I found out the hard way that they didn't really care about me. And I think everyone's journey is different. But see, my journey hopefully doesn't sound like your journey. If you're listening to this right now, I hope to God that what I'm about to tell you isn't what you have to experience. I hope that you don't have to go through the struggles in life working for someone at the rate that I was, and have so many things happen to you before you finally say enough is enough. I hope that you pulled the trigger before I did. Um, I took the position. I moved up to Portland, Oregon with my 6 month old with my 6 month pregnant wife, with our first child, for this position to become a project manager and oversee the entire projects for the Pacific Northwest. I became the senior most IT project manager there: Washington, Oregon, Montana, Idaho. And basically, I went in and I built patient healthcare systems. I had a team of engineers that I managed, and and we did a lot of cool things together. But they told me that I'd be able to transfer back home after 2 years, back to California, after I took care of things up there. Well, 3.5 years later, you know, my dad gets diagnosed with cancer, and it was stage 3, stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's kind of a big deal. Um, and I put in for the transfer, and they said, "I'm sorry, Jeff, but we don't have anyone to replace you." So that was it. My dad was diagnosed, said that he wasn't gonna probably make it to Christmas um, of 2016 of that year in 2015. Wouldn't make it to 2016. It was a pretty rough time in my life. And then, of course, thank God. By the way, I just want an update for everybody. My dad is still alive today, and he's not cancer free. He's got what they call chronic non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, so it's going to be in his body the rest of his life. But it's so slow growing. The chemotherapy every 6 months basically keeps killing it, keeping it at bay. Right.
Oh,
So that's a blessing. But the second piece is that in November of that same year, my grandfather lost 100 pounds and is basically diagnosed terminally ill from something called valley fever. And it's basically a lung infection, and it wouldn't go away. And he's 93 years old. So, people kind of told me that stuff was not going right, and that I should probably give him some attention. So November of that year, I put in yet again a transfer request, and it was denied. Take a guess why? Because they didn't have anyone to replace me. So in January in 2016, my wife and I found out that we were going to have our next baby.
yep.
And we were super excited about it. Lo and behold, we do the whole announcement thing and things look fantastic. But at 10 weeks, we ended up losing that child. And that was probably one of the hardest experiences of my life. And I definitely know it was obviously even more extreme, bigger of a problem for my wife, being through that physically and everything. That was tough. So I put in for yet another transfer, and that didn't work, so that my wife would be able to be with her family. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even get the day off that my wife went to go have, the surgical removal of our unborn baby. And it was destructive. It was absolutely destructive. It destroyed all of the love and joy that you are supposed to experience in life. That wasn't enough, by the way. I didn't quit then. That wasn't enough. I quit because they promoted me. You're probably saying,
and now what you're supposed to
what?
want, right? That's what you're supposed to want, right?
Right. You would think. Well, they promoted me to a project manager 3. They put those 3 little numerals at the end, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's big company stuff. Yeah.
The 3 capital I's, people. Okay.
Yeah.
This was a big deal. The 3 capital I's. So what ends up happening? Well, I find out that they moved me from the hourly scale to the salary scale.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was the lead project manager, working anywhere from 10 to 12 hours a day at time and a half. And even with a 25% raise, right? Yep. This is a 6-figure salary, by the way, right? So even with a 25% raise, it came out to be 25% less after everything was said and done. And I said, so not only do they not care about me, they obviously have put me through the ringer, but now they've given me a paid deduction, even though they've given me a new promotion.
Yeah, they sold it to you as a promotion, I'm sure. Yeah.
They did.
Been there before. Yeah.
I had never experienced anything like that in my life. I was humiliated.
But Jeff, the money is constant. You don't have to worry about it, the up and downs of the hourly.
Bingo.
Been in those meetings before. Yeah.
Bingo.
Sorry about that.
And so lo and behold, finally I got my first paycheck, and I saw that it was 25% less. And that's what finally did it. It wasn't anything of all the stupid things that they did to me and destroyed me and made me feel like I was absolutely worthless. That wasn't enough. It's actually embarrassing. You know that? It's actually really embarrassing to look back on and say, why didn't I leave sooner?
It
Um,
it might be embarrassing, but it's an important story because there's a lot of people that are, they're walking on that, diving board, and they have to walk all the way to the little edge where half their feet are over before they jump off, right? So why don't we then continue the story, right? So then what happened? Like, and by the way, like, you already have one kid, so money is important,
yeah.
which is always a
Well,
hard reason to leave, right?
the irony is when I finally, did, of course I talked it over with my wife and really thought about, man, this is a really big decision. Is this really what I want to do? Um, it just seemed like so crazy. I had a dream job. Everything that I did in life was for this moment. Like I've got the perfect career for me. And what was really crazy was that moment of realization when the paycheck came in, and I talked to my wife. I prayed about it. I just thought in my head, what the heck am I going to do with myself? Like, is this even worth doing what I'm doing? Should I leave? And at the time, I had started doing my own little projects. I've always been a side hustle guy. I've always had a side hustle, and I've always been proud of my side hustles. By the way, I remember doing, like, while I've always had a full time job. I did a little side hustle to build websites. And it was really really something that I enjoyed doing. I built websites for local clients and stuff like that just to have fun. And one guy was a, a plastic surgeon, and I redid his website. And you know I thought, well, shoot, I can build these virtual teams to do all this other crazy stuff. I can i can do anything, right? Like, what else can I outsource, right? So I started building this little team on the side. Thank God, looking back, thank God that I did. um, and pretty much that's what happened. I started building little projects on the side, finding out that I could do cool things. And I wasn't really in it for the money. It was just kind of a hobby. But at that time, when I was still working for Philips, I had actually amassed a team of probably 10 or so quote unquote virtual assistants to do random projects for me on the side. But it never made me money. So basically, at that point in time, I said, well, if I'm going to buckle up and I'm going to leave and do my own thing, then I have to really quickly figure out how to turn this into a profitable business that at least makes six figures. And of
Right,
course,
right.
talking into my own logical mind as a project manager. So, for those of you who don't know the life of a project manager, the life of a project manager is very simple. It's called risk mitigation. That's your job. Your job is risk mitigation. How to get rid of risk is in situation. Well, there was no way out of this, right? So literally what ended up happening was, my wife and I just had that discussion, and she said, it's time. You're miserable. You're miserable. No, you don't. Nobody respects you. So I gave them what they wanted. They had no one to replace me. So
Sure. So
that
how did you scale up the side hustle?
that's the fun part. So I actually did something absolutely bonkers. I took my wife and my 3-year-old kid at that time, and we went to the Philippines. We went to the Philippines and literally just tried to make it work. I was just on a mission there. I hired a consultant. Her name was Ria. She was in the Philippines because I had no idea how to get results myself. I never even had a profitable business. It was just for fun. I'd make a couple $100 here and there. So when that happened,
And why the Philippines, by the way?
you know, that was the interesting story. Is that when I was first figuring all the stuff out, I had gone, and I don't know if you ever heard of this guy. We became friends, believe it or not. But there's a website called outsourcingtothephilippines.com, something like that. And this was years ago, man. This is probably 10 years ago. His name's Chris Ducker, and he's from the UK, but he lived
Yeah.
in Cebu. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, yeah, just a podcast or something or other. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's behind something called Upreneur now, is his thing. And I just remember reading some of the stuff that he had online, because as a project manager, whenever I hire someone, they're one word to me: resource. They're just a resource. And not that I'm saying they're just the resource, but like I hire people because I need them to do something, a resource,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And that's how we should all be thinking, by the way. And so when I the very first thing that bothered the heck out of me as a project manager was Gantt charts. Gantt charts were the end of me. I hated it.
That's like a 1940s military deal. Yeah,
Dude, if you don't,
those should be those have been proven ineffective, by the way, too.
if and never accurate. So if you don't know what we're talking about right now, go to Google, type in Gantt, Gannt, Gantt chart, or is it Gantt, one or the other.
I one or the other. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Just say Siri or Google and then say the name Gantt chart,
Get chart.
and you'll see.
And then whatever you see, just try to forget it because you don't want to learn any of that stuff. Don't let that be something that you think is good.
Now, I had a project management role that required that I make Gantt charts for all my projects, no matter how big or how small. And they were probably 60% of the time consumed on a project from a project management perspective, which is ironic because a project manager, like if you break down what that means, it means manage projects, right? So I had less time to manage projects because I was doing documentation. So I found a guy on Fiverr back when Fiverr was $5, and he literally, it was a guy, and I think he was from Pakistan, and it was really amazing. He was so good, but his communication skills sucked, and he called himself a project management virtual assistant. I didn't even know what a virtual assistant was back then. Like I said, everyone was a resource. So I just started Googling, the inquiring mind, and once I figured out what a virtual assistant was, it changed my life, man. And I started figuring out everything else I could delegate. I worked really hard to get an Inc. article taken down about me because I got in trouble at work for it, about how I outsourced my job. And ironically, now that I'm an entrepreneur, I wish it was still up there.
Yeah, completely. I was gonna say it's like I don't even care what you say about me. Just spell my name right.
Yeah. So luckily, I mean, I've had a couple of features in other, articles and magazines and stuff like that since then. I just was on Entrepreneur Weekly last week. It's crazy to think of where I'm at now. And if you're out there, if you're a freelancer, or if you're in a corporate job right now and you're thinking about making the leap, I just want to tell you one thing. Like for me, looking back, I just want to tell you that there's nothing wrong with having a job. There's nothing wrong with it. And there's a lot of people out there that are giving horrible advice and telling people to take the leap without a safety net. The safety net is so important because at the end of the day, especially if you have kids, dude, you got to pay the bills, man. And let me tell you a little bit about the entrepreneur suicide rate. It's high. There's a reason why. It's very stressful when you're the only person responsible for that bill getting paid every month. It's hard. And let me tell you, it was hard for me. I remember in
Mhm.
August of 2016 looking over the ledge at my recently bought condo. It's a lease in Makati City in the Philippines, 6 stories up, and just looking over and saying, "Damn, is it even worth it?"
And I think an important takeaway there is you were doing a side hustle, so you were already testing the marketplace. So very similar stories I have in parallel to you as corporate job, and I was lucky because I did start some businesses early on, and then I really wanted to go kind of the corporate route somewhat because I just wanted more fuel to what I was doing, and that ended up not working out as well. But the whole time I was doing side hustle. I was doing similar things, websites all the time. People were I was lucky. It was photography, video, and websites, and people that social media was early on, so I would just post about some stuff, and then people were like, oh, talk to Daran, he knows how to do that. But I think you had some knowledge, maybe not complete picture of how to make some money, some revenue, and how to sell it a little bit. Maybe not a full plan, but a little plan.
You want to hear a humbling moment for me? I was so desperate to make money when I first started that one of my first gigs was selling my own time on Fiverr to help manage people's Twitter accounts for $5. Okay, I was paying myself. I went from a 35 whatever, I don't even know what the hourly rate is, right, for a six-figure guy, down to a $5 an hour guy doing your social media on Fiverr. Okay, like I was so distraught when I first started. And it's so interesting because I had no idea how to price myself, right? I think we all struggle with our own self value. We're given value assigned to us from birth, how much we're worth. Some people give value assigned to them before birth. Some aren't even born. They've been told that they're not valuable before they even had a chance to breathe. And
Yeah, my wife has a great little takeaway on that one is it take your well what I always say is your first price in your head, just whatever that is, double it. Like
yeah,
and you'll be scared. If you're not scared to sell a certain dollar amount, you're probably wrong. And then my wife always says, before you ever pitch a price, tell your significant other first that price, and then they'll tell you what you should be selling it for. Don't just go out and pitch a price without like clearing it through them first, because they'll be like, you're not doing all that for that.
people always say your biggest skeptic is herself. I said, no, you haven't. You haven't.
No.
You haven't been married yet.
Yeah, not married yet. Yeah, no, trust me.
But that's it, man. For me, I mean, I started out with a $5 gig, and then I worked myself up, and then I finally was able to find a couple of VAs that were reliable. Back to that thing, that were reliable, because it's really hard as a managed service. Now I have over 80 people on my team. I think we just hired 5 more people today, so probably close up to 90 people on my team right now. And funny enough, I'd say probably half of our clients are usually people that have day jobs, and they're like doing a side hustle, but they can't dedicate enough time to it. So they hire a VA to help them kind of run their side hustle. Right.
That's great.
So and there's people that, and I'm not going to say names, but I got people that work at Microsoft and Google, and, even like, lending companies and like tech startups and stuff. And they all kind of have side hustles. I think we live in a gig economy.
Well, I think it's fun, and I'm not so sure that we're supposed to do the exact same thing every day all the time. I think it's kind of fun to do a lot of different things. Now, depending on your personality trait, you might lean to wanting consistency more than others. I don't lean that way. I like it changing all the time. Now, I do want to touch on a couple things in that journey. So, $5 to, almost 90 different people that are working for you. Tell us a little bit more about that road. Like, how did you get a couple of maybe a couple key clients, or how did you figure out some pricing? Whatever kind of some value you can bring.
You ready for this? When I first started hiring people in the Philippines, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just read that thing from online. It was actually online.jobs.ph didn't even exist. It was just outsourced to the Philippines. It was like Elance and Odesk and Fiverr. So that's all I had as a reference. So I was thinking, well, most people are paying $3 to $5 an hour. How am I going to charge more? Right. So I started out just saying, okay, well, what if I had a virtual team, but like I managed them because I'm a project manager? Like, what if I did that and added that as a value? And then I just raised my prices to say $7 an hour. Right. Well, that's what I did for a while. And trust me when I say I worked my ass off, man. That was the hardest job I ever had, trying to manage all these people. And there was this epiphany moment for me when I realized it wasn't about the hourly rate. It was the value that I was able to provide to someone else. That was the thing. And I actually, since 2016, I had doubled my prices every November, every year. And as a matter of fact, with COVID-19 that just happened, I actually reduced my prices a little bit, because what I did, well, I raised and lowered, and I'll tell you why. What I did was I repackaged it up to entrepreneurs that normally wouldn't be able to afford us, because we had basically a $750 to a $1,500 retainer on normal, like for an entry level. But I made a new entry level product for $298 to use my team for 20 hours a month, which is basically an hour a day. And I want to give full credit to Jake Cortez and his partner Pat, who came up with this idea, because they said, you don't have like a get your feet wet offer, And I was like, I don't. It was either put the, open up the fire hose or not. And when I did that, what was crazy was that changed everything, because now I was able to get people in for a very minimal investment, and them try it out, see what it's like having a VA at about a $14.90 an hour mark. If you're listening to this in 2020, and 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 see they got their feet wet, and most of them, 60%, have upgraded to a bigger package after the first 30 days.
Very
See?
cool.
So that's the thing. So the journey, guys, is that you have to start somewhere. Okay? You have to start somewhere. You have to validate your idea. And the worst thing you could ever do is jump into something without validating your idea. Right? And validating it, the best way to validate an idea, guys, is to take somebody's money. Right? If you can't take somebody's money, then your idea is not validated.
So then how did you come up with how did you learn to sell on value? I've heard, we all heard it say, Tony Robbins or somebody says it all the time, but it never seems to click until it actually clicks. So was there a moment or a time, or did it just, any story there?
So funny enough, my very first year, I left my quote unquote corporate business making a little less than $150,000 a year. And I left in February. Get ready for this. Guess when I turned in my letter of resignation? February 29th of 2016, leap day. Okay. And it wasn't planned. It wasn't until afterwards I said, holy crap, that was leap day. It took the leap,
That's great.
And so technically I've just had my first anniversary this year, right? But what's really interesting is that, for me, that first year, I made $250,000. Now, that's gross.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna say,
I found out what that's like as an entrepreneur. I probably kept 50 grand in 2016.
Sounds pretty.
Yeah, I made 150 to make 50. And as the saying goes, worked 80 hours a week for myself to avoid working 40 hours for more money for someone else.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But the journey kind of went like this. I validated the idea. I found out what it would be. I found out what it was worth to other people by validating different pricing. And then I hit a fork in the road in August of 2018 when I realized that I was still selling hours. So instead of trying to sell something that wasn't hourly to my existing client base, because they're going to be like, well, it's cheaper if I just pay you by the hour, because it is. I said, I'm going to create a whole damn new company. And I did. Here's the hook, line, and sinker. It's the same people. Okay. But the difference is I'm selling a result. I'm not selling an hour. So I'm selling a result. So for example, if I'm going to sell a brand guide, or if I'm going to sell a funnel, right? Or if I'm going to sell, like tomorrow I have a call with a client. He's a top 20 podcaster, and he wants me to help him make what's called a subscribe wall. So when you go to his website, you have to subscribe to get access to the website, right? And I was able to say, okay, I know that probably is going to cost you. And Mike, if you're listening, this is just the truth of business, and you freaking know it anyway. It's probably going to take my team 25 hours to do it, right? Now at $14 an hour, let me get my calculator out here. Okay, let's say it's $14.90 an hour, and we times that by 25 hours. That's $372. But I sold the result. I sold the package, right? I sold it to him for $1,500.
I don't want to track. I don't want to even want to know if you're, because the hourly is weird too. Because some people you just log at 8 hours, even if you didn't do 8 hours.
Yeah.
Like, as a business owner and as just even a consumer of stuff, I just want the task done. Like, is it in my budget? Do I think I can afford it? Can I get a return on this investment? Those are the thoughts that go through the consumer's mind, the end user's mind, the business owner's mind. I don't even want to think about, well, is 14 hours sound right? Like, I don't know. What if it turns out to be 62 hours, right? That's when I actually start worrying about that, right?
Yeah.
I don't really, I'd rather just know a flat rate dollar amount.
Right.
And I've gone through a lot of that as well. So I've done the hourly consultant, and I still have like one client, maybe two on that. Just they've been around with me since the beginning. So kind of like, it is what it is. But what I also found out was it was getting kind of annoying to figure. So let's say I just needed specific programmer for 2 hours. Like, well, I didn't have a rate card for that like level of programmer. Well, I didn't want to have this big rate card. I just, so what we did is I just kind of estimated the amount of work needed, came up with kind of an idea. Sometimes we work way harder and sometimes less, and just said, here's the monthly fee. Like, it's just this, and we do actually the
Boom.
same, it's same amount
Yep.
every month. And what that does is it gives me freedom and my team freedom to say, yes, just do it. Just do it. Just, yes, great, let's do it. And then come up with plan. If we need to have a photographer that week, great. If you need, anything that moves the cogs forward to get the client more business, to increase their brand or sales or leads or whatever it is, we have the budget to do it. Obviously you don't have unlimited budget, but you have some goalposts to play inside of, right?
And see, and that's the meat and potatoes, because see, already with that project with Mike, like I was starting to talk about, is like now I've brought in my copywriter, right? Now I've brought in my web developer, and then I brought in my graphic design team, right? So now, and if, by the way, just so you know, I'm not just in the Philippines. I've got team members all over the world. I've got 9 people that are copywriters here in America, right? And what I do is, like I said earlier about my 90-10 rule, I just want people to do, not just my clients, but also my team. I want my team to focus on what they do best, right? And if it's not something that they wake up every day excited to do, like I'm excited to, I wake up every day. I can't, it's funny. I had an offer. Someone tried to buy my business last year, and it was a nice offer. Okay. And I didn't sell. And the reason why is because I was thinking in my head, I said, what would I do every day? And not just that, like, how could I ever find a job or or create a business as good as this that I actually enjoy every day? Like, I was like, hell no. And I'm so glad that I didn't too, because my business has been growing phenomenally, and I would feel bad if somebody bought my business and they're not able to have the success that I had.
Right. Sure.
Like like genuinely, like I've seen the nightmares, and you probably see it too, where somebody takes over a business and it runs to hell.
Oh, yeah, it was a part of I worked for a medium-sized company that we were doing so well too, and that's kind of my I grew that online store to over $1 million a month. Was just I'm just like, man, we're gonna go to like 5. We're just gonna, and they just the company that purchased us just, they actually shut down the store about 2 years ago, ran it into the ground.
Wow.
Like, and I was just, there was so much further it could gone too, but that happens.
That's a shame. And I
It
think,
is a shame.
and to your point too about the retainer, I mean, that's the only way to truly scale, because that, for me, at the end of the day, and hopefully everyone listening in here, if there's if there's one freaking piece of advice I'd give myself back when I was starting and trying to figure out what the price and all that kind of stuff, I would have just given myself a lesson on what LTV is, lifetime value, right? Lifetime value of your client, lifetime value of your customer is so important. Like for me, if you lose a client, like for me, of course I hate losing clients, but the fact that I've got 100 plus clients all paying me a monthly retainer, if one leaves, it doesn't hurt, you know? Like it makes me feel bad because I take my business personally. Like I want every single, like even today, I refunded and just canceled out an account today, right? And she's awesome. As a matter of fact, she told me, she says, I don't want to do this. I don't even know if I want a refund from you. I love you. You're awesome. It's just that one of the things that we wanted to do for her just wasn't going to work out. We both knew wasn't going to work out. She's too early in her business, so she doesn't have the right, direction. And my team wasn't helping her out in that aspect. And I said, it's just not going to work. But back then I was just doing hourly stuff. So I was just always chasing clients. Right.
Mhm.
And like, and even on projects, like one-time projects, they suck because once you're done, you're finding another project. And this is the problem in the coaching consulting world too. Coaches, consultants have a 3, 6, maybe a year-long contract. Then they got to find new clients. That sucks.
And the thing about even the small, especially the one-off projects, the problem what I found was we were just finally figured out the client and jiving, and then the project's over. Well, it took you so long to kind of get this rapport going. Another thing on the lifetime value, you were making some pitches as the business owner, but I also think as a business owner as well, I like to look at it, even though like a lot of our contracts are month to month, pretty much all of them, is I do look at it as a year, 14 months stint. And that is the reason what I was saying before. Sometimes we do way too much and way too little. Like I like to look at it like we're along this path with you.
Partners.
Yeah, we're partners. We're gonna be here for a year, a year from now. Like, so it's gonna work. We're gonna make sure this works out the whole time, not just for this one little project, fix a patch in the hole. I want. So then when we talk, we start. If you start the conversation and with that thought process, you're not going to sit there and take somebody's money when their foundation's broken. Like if their e-commerce store is quite broken and they wanted you to do all this marketing and ads, I'm like, well, we're just going to lose them. Like the conversion rate's not going to work out. We got to fix the whole user flow first, which, it's just a different way of looking at the lifetime value of a customer and the partnership, like you would call it, which is a great way. What about just some other kind of different questions? What's the kind of common myth, whether it's being a business owner or a marketer? I kind of maybe like the marketer common myth, but anything that you can think of that kind of pops out to you?
Well, I think something that ties in both of these and previous to what you just said, I had the joy of going down to Jay Shetty's office, Icon Media, and his business partner, who's become a good friend of mine. He, I was mind blown to discover that the very first hire that they had, and I think they probably got at least maybe a dozen, maybe even 20 people by now. I went to his office in LA, last year, and the very first hire that they made, him and Jay Shetty, his name's Alex Kushner, by the way. Their first hire was a role that I've never heard of in my life, and it was so transformational for me on how I should treat my clients. Like I was jelly, is they hired a partner experience manager. And I was like, wow, a partner experience manager. Because how many times do we treat people like clients, like customers? And I love what you just said. And I want to just give you the floor back just for a second to acknowledge that what you said about the partner experience, about bringing people in and being a part of their growth, that's why I've been able to retain clients. My average client right now, I think, is like 2.7-year tenure. And the company's been around since 2016. So it's probably longer than that. Just the company's been getting a lot of new clients, right? So so I just want you guys to think about the myth. Okay, we'll go into myths, right? Around marketing, because there's a 3-step process that I'm going to say give credit to my boy, Dennis Yu, one of my friends, partners, clients, fellow podcaster on my podcast, Savage Marketer, which I got to have you on, by the way.
Let's do it.
And I was at Digital Marketer because he actually is faculty there long before me for years. And I just recently became inducted. And we did a little talk together on stage in front of they call it lab or something. It's like their Digital Marketer lab. And it was so funny because people overcomplicate things, right? Especially marketing. Good God. You want to talk about overcomplicating things. That's what salespeople hate about marketers. Okay. And that's why sales and marketing they always have conflict, always, because they have different trains of thought. Sales is about closing deals. Marketing is about, customer experience, brand experience, email automations, the funnel, the follow-up sequence, the LTV, Sales care about one thing: market qualified leads and sales. That's it. Really, that's it. So, and sales qualified leads, but sometimes those are the same. But what's really interesting is that what I've found, at least, is that from a marketing perspective, the simpler you can make it. Dennis showed me this 3-step process of how to sell anything, or how to market anything. The first step, right, is make an awesome product. And most people don't make an awesome product. It sucks, right? And I'll even take it a step back further, right? You can validate it even before you create the product by actually selling it and saying, hey guys, I'm thinking about making this, or hey, look, I'm going to start a new service. offering Facebook ads for $1,500 a month or whatever, and I'm going to do this and that and this and that. Who's interested? And then once you have interest in a product, you create an awesome product or service. Just make it freaking awesome and focus on that product and just make it shiny and beautiful and sweet. Don't take your turd and put a little bow on it. It's still going to smell like crap, right? And then, so that's the first step, is creating an awesome product, right? A validated product. And the second piece is get good results. You get good results with your product, and then you actually document the results that you get with your clients. And so many people are afraid to document those and ask for the testimonial, ask for the case study, right? And say, how did we do? Oh, I'd love to talk about it. I was on a call today with one of my clients, convoso.com, doing something that most marketers don't do. A review of the campaign. We did a review of the campaign. It's been a month now, May 19th. We launched the campaign for Convoso. It's a re-engagement to their 15, 20,000 email list that they never email, right? And we went over and found out how many people are opening it, how many people are clicking through. We found out that in a 1 month period, we were able to reactivate 13 of stale list in a month. 13 scheduled demos. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
right?
It's fantastic.
And these are like, and by the way, these are like 5-6 figure deals for them, right? So imagine, right? And talk about the value as a marketer. There's a misconception again. The marketer of saying, hey, well, was it worth the 10,000 or 5,000 or whatever it is for an email campaign to make you all these deals, right? And so you create an awesome product. That's step 1. Number 2 is you get awesome results. And step 3, you use awesome results to market said product. And that's it. 3-step process. Make an awesome product, get good results, use results to sell awesome product.
But what if I'm scared to ask for the results, the reviews? Well,
you do that in the beginning. You set the expectation in the beginning. Here's what everyone does wrong, and why I believe I've been able to be successful at it, is that in the very beginning of the process, I say, hey, look, Dan, I just want to tell you, like this, I'm really excited to do this project with you. This is really incredible. And I really see you as a lighthouse, right? You can really be a pillar in this industry that I'm trying to tap into, because you are such a role model. And when we knock this out of the park for you, people are going to be asking, who did this for you? And what I'd like to do, if you're okay with it, I always ask for the okay, right? As I said, if after we get you some solid results, I love to put up a little case study of what we're able to accomplish together. And of course, only if we get out of the park results, right? Because then they're going to feel like a jerk if they say no.
Not only that, you're basically saying that you're very confident you're getting them results.
Yeah.
That you're going to, because you actually want to write about them and you and all the good stuff you guys did together. Like you're saying that up front. That's a very interesting part. And I've helped some clients like literally just write. We've written a couple form emails for them to sit there and say, okay, send these to clients because we need reviews. You need that social proof up there. But I like the thought of, let's do it up front. It's similar to money. I'm a big fan with money. Do it up front, get it out of the way so we can start doing the real stuff, right? Yeah. Be done with it, move on. I also like that with the testimonials. Get it up front and then move out of the way. And then you have to obviously re-ask, but it's so much easier since you've already opened the door.
You just grazed over a very important factor that a lot of people need to hear, which is what you just said. Put the money up front, guys. First off, why the hell would you want to waste your time with someone who's not going to pay, right? You're going to sit there on a call with someone for an hour and a half and talk about all the things you could do for them and give them a strategy session for free, basically, if they first identify that they can't. You know who's a genius at that? You ever heard of Billy Jean?
Yeah. Yep. The market. Yeah, he's got some great videos too.
This guy charges $100 for a sales call. Like, he's literally says, okay, this is for real. If you really want to move forward with us, here's the booking link to schedule. And there's $100 area that's a non-refundable so that you are serious on getting on a sales call. Now, I'm not that cocky.
Yeah, that's next level.
That's next level. but that's damn. I mean, you know for a fact that they have one, and of course that deposit for the call is deducted from whatever you do with them,
Where
right?
you spend it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I,
still, like you know that those people come there for one reason. They want to hire you, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
that's using marketing to flip it to where people come to you, and he's not he's got the leverage there because of the great marketing job he does on social media. So, what about, and then just switching to kind of a couple more, I guess, personal questions you could call them, but like any mentors or books or anything across that, or even could be even online sessions or whatever that you've taken across that has helped you along your journey.
you know what? I want to give a shout out to my boy Jim Edwards. And Jim Edwards, he's actually the copywriter behind Russell Brunson,
Oh wow.
um, ClickFunnels guy, and he has a new book called. Actually, I haven't even got mine yet because I told him I want a signed copy. So I'm bugging him for a signature. I'm not going to just order one on Amazon. So I have a whole bookshelf over here of books of people that have either been on my show or I've worked with or I've paid them money or whatever. Just people like for me, it's not just one thing to write a book. It's not one thing to read a book. It's not one thing to sign up for somebody's course. Like if somebody is a mentor of mine, I actually go out and I have a very strategic, intentional relationship building strategy. It's literally called my 5 pillars of expertise. I have 5 pillars of my own expertise: branding, marketing, uh, oh, and obviously doggies.
I want you to go back over those. Hey, honey.
For people to believe what I can do for them, what I call the core promise, right? What's our brand promise? What is it that we say we can do for someone? What are the 5 areas of expertise that I have to be good at to reinforce my promise, right? So for me, it's branding, for social media, copywriting, inbound marketing, and virtual teams. That's my 5 things right there. I've rehearsed this a few times. It's my thing, and everyone. It's amazing to know. This is what's mind-boggling to me. People don't actually have their own like mission statement, their own core promise. Like if you can walk into a room and immediately tell somebody and say, you know what, Daran, I build personal brands for founders and CEOs, usually of tech companies that are really ready to leverage their achievements to become influencers in their space. Like that's solid. It's okay. I get it. I know exactly what you do. Or say, hey, look, I help small businesses and tech founders create agile virtual teams to help scale. It's easy, right? And then I
Mm-hmm.
have my expertises that back that up, and all my content strategy is based on these expertise. So each one of my pillars of expertise has two people, go-to people in those industry. So Jim Edwards is one of the people under my copywriting column. He's amazing. And by the way, check him out. He's awesome. He's also got he should be paying me for this, but he's also got a book. It's called Copywriting Secrets. How about that? So those are really things that I really enjoy. I actually came out with a course myself called Social Copy Secrets because that was something I felt was really missing. Is there's really not a lot of people teaching how to get attention on social media. It's something that I've been really able to do on the organic side. I'm not Trump level, like that guy. He either you love him or hate him. His marketing team is genius.
So yeah, he actually is. And not to get off that subject, I actually have his book,
Which book? Oh, you
the
have it, Jim
copywriting series.
Edwards?
I was like that. I was like, I guarantee you, I have that book. When you said that title, I real quick went to my other monitor and did a quick search.
There
So
it is.
yeah, I'm gonna ask if you could connect us after this show.
Oh,
I'd love
absolutely.
to get him on. Love to talk to him. No, I've it was a bathroom book for a while, for probably
Hmm.
for a little bit. So
Have you read
it's pretty
Expert
awesome.
Secrets by Russell Brunson?
I have not.
There's the other one I was going to say. And it's
Okay.
funny because here I am in Russell Brunson camp. But the reason why, guys, is because these are not your foundational marketing and branding principles books. These are not your business books. These are what you need to learn how to actually differentiate yourself as a human in the
Hmm.
marketplace. And see, that's what's missing. I think that we've come into an era now where there's an app for everything. And if we could be more personalized and human, you're going to get farther. And the best way to grow your brand, your business, whatever the hell you're working on, is to actually create more human interaction. That's why I'm on the show with you, because I want to humanize myself to your audience and to grow and expand my audience. And we have a mutual understanding that I'm going to be promoting your show and you're obviously going to be promoting me on your show. It's a win-win. That's why I love podcasting.
Plus, it's also great to meet new people and get, how often you get an hour and a half conversations, and kind of actually dive deep into some subjects, which was like one of my favorite things anyway. I do want to back up a little bit because you said a bunch of cool things in there. I've had a lot of people that I've helped with their like resumes, try to get a new job. And really my first question is, what do you want to do? What is it that you do well? And, start getting on that where you really need to be very clear and concise of what you do and who you are and how you do things. And that is so lost that like people, when they're doing their resumes, they're like, talk about formatting and, making sure they have all these bullet points. I'm like, what's the narrative? What's your story? And then, so I think it's so important to understand yourself. And even if it's not the stuff that let's say you want to pivot and do it a different direction, but at least understand who you used to be and what your past actually means. And I think if you don't do that, it's going to be really hard to articulate that if you want to move up a few levels. What's going to happen is maybe you'll move up a little half level or something, but being able to storytell, whether it's 2020, 2050, or 1920, it's always one of the most powerful ways to connect with others, right? Wow. So yeah, I kind of want to go off that tangent. I was literally just helping somebody with a resume just the other day, and I'm just like, the story isn't. I'm lost here. I don't know what you do. I see a bunch of bullets, but I don't get it. So
you have to have a story, and everybody. And it goes back to like, I don't know if you were a Boy Scout or anything like that.
I was, yeah. For
sure. Yeah,
my
me too.
2 older brothers were Eagle Scouts. I actually wasn't. I was like so close, but I transferred schools and didn't quite. I was literally everything besides my Eagle Scout project, unfortunately.
Well, I got my finished. I think I stopped at my Arrow of Light, whatever that was.
Yeah. That's
so I think that was towards the end there, but
middle. But you were in it for a bit though, for sure.
Yeah, I was in it for a minute. But anyway, my point is that like we know that one of the coolest things about being in some sort of like a Boy Scout, Girl Scout type of thing is that I think you start realizing at a very young age who the best storytellers are. And they also usually become the most popular kids because everybody wants to hear the story. Like, who can tell that scary story? Like, the kid who's like, "Wow, do you remember that the one time I had a dream?" and not able to orate and not able to build out a story, compared to someone who's like, "And there it was, creeping underneath my bed. I could hear it whispering the words," and everyone's like, "Oh my God, what's coming?"
Yeah, no, completely. And then that translates into selling your product, especially when you're online. Yep. And one thing I always talk about when you're doing online is sell online very similar to offline. Like if you were selling like this mic, you wouldn't just give me the specs. You would kind of like, when you're talking this mic, it really captures the lows. You could, if you have a deep voice, this is probably the mic that works for you. And what's, it's not
exactly. This one has this beautiful red, sexy glow. Yeah. Oh my God.
If you're a gamer, that's the mic you need, right? Or is red part of your brand package, right? Yeah, that's the mic for you. But again, yeah. And I think a lot of people, they forget about the story because people buy stories, and to be honest too, there's like, I don't want to buy anything anymore that doesn't have a cool story attached to it. If somebody comes over, I want to talk about this piece for some cool reason. You don't need anything anymore,
Speaking of stories, I think I have a perfect way to close out this podcast. I have the best story for you. And you're either gonna laugh and think that I'm a boss, or you're gonna say that's super disrespectful and possibly not air this podcast.
Well, let me ask the last question that I ask everyone
okay, good.
first.
Ask this question first.
Yeah, because I end I didn't have to end the podcast, but maybe it will be. Maybe whatever your story will be edited out. Everyone will know. But my last question that I'm going to ask is, how would you like to be remembered?
Wow. That has been something that's been becoming more clear to me. I still think that it's a lot easier to explain what I do than where I want to be visualized and what legacy I want to leave. But right now, I feel like, my company's growing and I'm making such a big impact. And, earlier you asked me why the Philippines. Well, there's a few reasons. One of them is because I know how much of an impact I can make there. And, the average person in the Philippines makes $9 a day, and that's in the city. If you live in the provinces outside, it's even lower. And I just know how much even $3, $5 can change a life over there. And, for me to be able to do 3, 4, 5, sometimes 10 multiplier more, most of the people that work for me in the Philippines make more money than anyone in their family generationally. And that means a lot to me. It's such a huge deal. I get a lot of crap. I developed this nickname, the King of Outsourcing. And with that has come a lot of flack, as you can imagine, because outsourcing has a negative connotation to it. And I've had a lot of flack, ironically, from American virtual assistants who are trying to compete at $25 to $50 an hour for a VA, and $14.90 an hour is what I charge, right? And you can imagine I'm making money on that, so they're obviously getting paid less than that, right? So, it's I get a lot of flack. People saying, "Oh, you just take advantage of third world countries and cheap labor and exploiting labor and this and that." And you know what the real reason I hire Filipinos for? It's because they're loyal. It's because they show up and they do jobs Americans don't want to do, like data scraping and data mining. A lot of what I do as as my team of virtual assistants is going into people's social media presences like LinkedIn. And that's a great way to transition into the story I was going to tell you.
Great.
So the legacy is about making impact. And I want to be able to create jobs and change lives. And through entrepreneurship, I have that outlet to do so. So if I'm remembered and said, dude, this guy literally empowered generations of jobs and providing and created stable, amazing wealth around the world, not just in America, but obviously around the world, that's enough for me. And that gets me to my disrespectful story. The disrespectful story is that this podcast itself that you and I are on right now was 100% scheduled by my virtual assistant, who right now has one job. Well, I have multiple people that work with me, but one of them whose job is to manage my LinkedIn presence, right? For 4 hours a day, logs in and finds people that have really badass podcasts, just like yours, and literally connects to them, likes and engages with your content, probably wrote a comment on one of your videos, sent you a connection request saying what they liked about it, probably, and then sent you a message with an offer saying, hey, you know what? If it's valuable to your audience, maybe they'd get a kick out of learning about how to delegate or virtual assistants and things like that. Let me know what you think. And guess what? They're sending that out to about 40, 50 people a day that are top podcasters. And this podcast appearance I'm on right now with you, Ben, is literally the work of that fruit that we were talking about.
So I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. And to give you some insight on my side of that is, so the message for the podcast, the copy and paste message, the second or third one, whatever it is, I saw that on my phone. I was like, what's that? And then I look back, I go, oh, he commented on another a podcast I had with Moby. And then he sent me a different message that was very nice and like, hey, that was really cool, got some value. I was like, even if this was a fishing trying to, I was like, it's great. Like, I'm in because you didn't try to close on the first date. So props to your VA, because I even looked back and was like, okay, so how do we how'd this happen? I was like, oh, you know what? They didn't just come at me full steam ahead, trying to close like right away, and I was like, I love it. And then I checked you out too, by the way. So and then I was like, okay, well, yeah, you already have on a podcast, you've been on TV, you've been, featured all over the place. I'm like, this is a great, and we have somewhat similar stories, which is pretty fun. So I was like, I'm in. I love it because
and by the way,
I have a tough sniff test. I have a tough sniff test, and it passed.
I'm honored that my VA was able to sniff through your sniff test because, and the funny part is that like, I'm obviously very careful about where I'm at too, right? Because there's I'll just say sometimes my VA's got it wrong. A couple of podcasts where they're like, yeah, I want to have you on or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm really busy. So let me message you back in 30 days, and look, and that's there's a great, and by the way, I did research on you too. And of course, when I saw that you were in person, I was genuine. I responded back and I said, hey, and here's where people use VAs the wrong way, or assistants in general, whether it's in the Philippines or America or wherever, is that they should be able to help us foster and grow and build relationships. But at the end of the day, it's really about me and you. Like, we are connected now. We have a relationship built on trust. I have now given you my deepest, darkest secret about you and I and how our relationship started, right? Like, who else can you say in your network has connected with you and built a relationship? And that I literally did Google research about an hour before our call. That message, by the way, on LinkedIn, that was when I started going, oh my God, I'm about to get on this podcast. Who is this guy? Right?
I love it.
And I was like,
so that's so smooth though. That's great. But see, I think that, not to go over time here, but it wasn't spammy. And that's also the deal, is people get, and then not even VAs, they try too hard, too fast right away. And then two, they get a little spammy, like, not sitting there and say, I'm going to let this simmer for a week or two. Like, let's give it and come back to it. Right.
Yeah.
And that way it doesn't seem like it was just a bot or somebody else that's out there. But
and you know what? I'm going to have to join you in person, and we're going to go over how to actually build relationships virtually. Like, that should be a whole show for itself, because that is what's wrong. And I said it earlier about everyone's using an app and an automation for everything. And I'm anti-app. Now, don't get me wrong. I like automation. Okay. So because obviously if my team is able to automate some of their stuff, it saves them time to do things that they're better suited for too. Right. But at the end of the day, when it comes to people, in a day and age where everything is automated, it's never been more important than now to be human. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I love it. That's a great way to end the podcast. Well, Jeff, it was a big pleasure of mine to have you on the Establishing Your Empire podcast. It was great, and let's stay connected. And whether it's you responding to me or somebody else, I'll still read it.
So, truth be told, for everyone out there, okay, who might think I'm an evil man right now, I have my team, and here's the analogy. I put my team out on the boat, and they're going to go out fishing, right? They're going fishing, and then as soon as they reel one in, it's like, oh, it's on there. Then they hand it off to me, right? And that way it keeps it genuine and authentic, because it's what they're doing research on you. They're doing research on your podcast. They're doing all that heavy lifting that I don't have time to do, right? They're doing that work for me. Once they vetted it, they said, this guy is worth a relationship, and we know that you'd love to connect with him and get some value on a show and this and that. Then they're going to engage with you. And then when you respond back, I come back. Here's my bonus tip for everybody. If you're learning how to do networking on LinkedIn or even on Facebook, is that send them a voice message. Send them a voice message. That way they know it's real, right? It's not you can't use a bot to send a voice message. Just press the little record button. Say, hey, Daran, been loving your podcast. Obviously, you're doing some great things. Would be such an honor to actually, I wouldn't even say don't even be on your podcast. I'd just be like, man, I love the stuff you're putting out there. Great to be connected. Looking forward to seeing more of it. Boom, done. And then Daran's going to be like, all right, this guy, he appreciates me. Right.
And the thing is about a content creator is you're putting yourself out there. You're doing a lot of work. You put yourself out there. So all content creators eat up feedback. eat it up. So that's a good way of doing it. But all right, man, I don't want to go over time here for you because I know you probably got a bunch of stuff to do and a family to hang out with. So it was great having you on, and I'm sure we'll cross some paths here soon.
Thank you so much. And when we open back up and the lockdown's over, I'm coming down.
Yeah, come on down to Austin, Texas. If not, I'll come to. You're in Cali, right? So
I am.
I'm there often too. So
okay,
either one works. All right, man.
All right,
Cheers.
brother.
Cheers.